Good morning, Namaskar. Let me start with a wonderful poem on this auspicious day of Teachers' Day. गुरु ही तो वह बाती है, खुद जलकर प्रकाश फैलाता है, अपनी मेधा के बल पर छात्रों का भविष्य बनाता है। क्या है हमारी गलती उनसे, हमें अवगत कराता है, सुधार करने का एक मौका देता, फिर स्वयं भी उसे बताता है। आत्मविश्वास का एक दीप जलाता, मुश्किलों में साथ निभाता है। तुम सब कुछ कर सकते हो, हर बार यही बतलाता है। नमन करता हूँ मैं उन सबको, कुछ लायक मुझे बनाया है। मैं कौन हूँ और क्या हूँ, मेरा मुझसे परिचय कराया है। With this beautiful poem on teachers, Namaste and a very warm welcome to all the dignitaries, invited guests, executive deans, directors, principals, heads, faculty members, and dear students to the celebration of Teachers' Day and distinguished lecture on the theme, The Role of Teacher in an Evolving Educational Paradigm. We are elated by the presence of Dr. Mahendra Sharma sir, Pro-Chancellor and Director General, Ganpat University. We are fortunate to have with us today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Amarendra Pani, Joint Director and Head Research, Association of Indian Universities, AIU. We are pleased to have Dr. Rakesh Patel sir, Pro Vice Chancellor and Executive Dean, Faculty of Pharmacy, and Dr. Amit Patel sir, Pro Vice Chancellor and Executive Registrar, Ganpat University. We welcome you all, sir, on this auspicious day. A life of joy and happiness is possible only on the basis of knowledge and science. This was famously said by the greatest teacher of India, whose birthday is dedicated to teachers all over the India. To express our gratitude to Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who was a staunch believer of education and was a well-known diplomat, scholar, the second president of India, and above all, a teacher, a guru. Teacher is the one who teaches how to implement the knowledge into action. In this 21st century, we can get information from Google Baba, but it is the teacher, a digital guru, and a guide who shows the way to convert the information into knowledge and create good human beings. The role of a teacher is not to be sage on the stage, but the guide on the side. With these kind words, I welcome once again all the dignitaries present on this auspicious occasion, all the guests, very warm welcome to all. Over to you, Deepali.
Thank you, sir. Whatever action a great man performs, common man follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Having belief in these lines by Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Honorable Pro-Chancellor and Director General of Ganpat University, Dr. Mahendra Sharma has become a true visionary leader with a mission to provide holistic education for the betterment of society. Sir is a seasoned scholar and an acclaimed academician. Sir's vision and perseverance had indeed helped Ganpat University to gain unparalleled success. Sir has played a vital role in the evolution of university. He is credited with many prestigious awards for his contribution in the field of research and education. I request Sir to please come forward and welcome and give a welcome address. Please, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dipali Dave. At the outset, I wish everyone a very happy Teachers' Day. We are really delighted and grateful to Dr. Amrinder Pani sir, who accepted our invite to address the teachers of the university on this very auspicious day. While we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, uh, while I was reading the text, I came across that it was his students and scholars who got around to celebrate his birthday, And he said, instead of celebrating my birthday, you celebrate it as a teacher's birthday, as a teacher's day. And that is how it started. His birth anniversary got celebrated as Teacher's Day. But having said so, we are equally delighted that we are in a very strong company of our university's intellectual capacities. We have our Pro Vice Chancellors, Dr. R.K. Patel, Dr. Amit Patel, our executive deans, Dr. Satyen Parikh, Dr. Rajan Purohit, and all the principals, deans, joint registrar, and the entire team who have come forward and are ensuring that we don't forget a very important day in the life of education. So while we are celebrating Teachers' Day, I was reminded of talking about the thoughts of Dr. Radhakrishnan. Before we will listen to Dr. Amin, we will be talking on a very important topic of role of teachers in evolving educational paradigm. According to Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, teachers should be the best minds in the country. Now, out of several quotes, I came across this very important one because it is the very base of a nation building process. The thoughts of a teacher is the thoughts of the students. So when we talk about teacher as a role model, in fact, the thoughts which the teacher transmit to the students builds his thoughts and eventually evolves a society which builds an economy and which builds a country. So it's very important that the teachers have to be the best minds and it should be along with the wisdom and knowledge. So that was one quote which I wanted to refer to. The second thing that I came across out of his several quotes was, he wrote was the teachers are the pillars of our society. They play an extraordinary part in the lives of our children, in equipping them with knowledge, strength, and to make them learn to face hardships of life. They involve themselves in molding their students into responsible citizens of our country. So it's a very important element which Dr. Radhakrishnan referred was involving themselves in molding. So teachers' job never ends when they have imparted the knowledge. It is involving themselves in the journey of evolution of the students, which is an inseparable part. So a role of teacher is very comprehensive. And I remember my first vice chancellor of the university, Professor P.I. Patel, used to say, I will quote it in Gujarati, કે શિક્ષક જ એવો એક સામાજિક પ્રાણી છે જેમાં 80% ઈમાનદારી છે. In English, if I convert, he said that teachers are the only people in the society who are 80% honest. So it is their responsibility to drive the building of the society and the development of the nation. And while I was referring to all these things, I was reminded that it was Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan who drafted the first higher education report of our country in 1948. Dr. Pani sir would agree with me that it was the first report which came out and which was a torch bearer. And it is an apt time to talk about that report because we now have a new education policy which has come around. And when I was looking at our new education policy and the thoughts of the Radhakrishnan committee, you will be surprised that whatever we are now visiting was already visioned in that document. So there are certain points you will be surprised. The report has talked about universities as organs of civilization and education as a basis of growth, both economic as well as financial growth. So it was not left aside. He thought about education as taking the country from an underdeveloped, developing and to a developed nation as an organs of change. The second thing which the report talked about was wisdom and knowledge. Now, when we talked about wisdom and knowledge, the committee was not only talking about the knowers of text, they talked about knowers of self. And it said that no amount of factual information can make a man virtuous unless something is awakened in them, an innate ability to live the life of the soul. And our new education policy is also talking about opening the entire education system on a value based, on wisdom, on knowledge being created on values, creating citizens. So it's like we are looking at the same kind of things which was reflected in the report. The third thing which the report talked about was flexibility of the education system. They talked about that there has to be tremendous flexibility and education should evolve as economy evolves, as societies evolve, as human race evolves. So there has to be a flexibility in the education system, which should be there. And we are currently talking about liberal education. It talked about training of teachers and training of academic leaders. And this is precisely NEP is also talking about. It talked about university autonomy. And Pani sir, you will be surprised. I am reading that quote, what was written in the report and what exactly is also getting reflected in NEP on university autonomy. And it said, higher education is obligation of state, but state aid not to be confused with state control over academic policies and practices. Intellectual progress demands the maintenance of the spirit of free inquiry. So it is something which the Radhakrishnan committee report talked about is getting thoroughly reflected after 70 years in our new education policy. And it talked about the final thing which I am commenting is it talked about Indian character of education. And our national education policy currently 2020 talks about Indian character of education. With those words, I come to a conclusion that Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, he was Vice President of India, second President of India, a great philosopher, thinker. He gave us a roadmap. He thought about teacher as an engine of transformation of society, economy, and country. So as a teacher, our responsibilities and duties are much higher because societies and country are relying heavily on our shoulders. And our job is no less than any other critical job in development of the country. So I wish everyone a happy Teachers' Day and wish that we realize our role in the true sense and put our maximum effort to fulfill the dream of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan as well as to complete the vision of India as a country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing many ideas and thoughts of Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. Yes, the role of teachers is more than being, just teaching, because teacher's role is not bound to only teaching, but teacher has to teach, train, and nurture the students like their children. So yes, teacher's job is more than the designation. Moving further, you don't have to be great to smart or to start, but you have to start to be great. Moving further, let me invite the dynamic persona who believes in initiation, action, collaboration, and creation, none other than Dr. Amrendra Prani, sir. He is a Joint Director and Head Research Division, Association of Indian Universities, AIU, New Delhi. Sir holds a doctoral degree in education from Punjab University, Chandigarh. He is a specialist in the area of research methodology in education. He has worked in some of the apex level agencies in education like NCERT, AIU, and in some of the premier reputed academic institutions like Punjab University, Chandigarh, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. As Deputy Director and Head of the Research and Policy Division of AIU, Dr. Pani is charged with the responsibility of initiating, supervising, and conducting research projects, designing student-centric programs, coordination and monitoring, organizing seminars, workshops, and training programs, and bringing out publications on various emerging issues in higher education. There are 6 edited books and a number of research and other publications to his credit. I invite Dr. Amrendra Pani sir to share his valuable thoughts with us on the topic, the role of teacher in an evolving education paradigm. Please, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dipali. A very good morning to everybody. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwar, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Professor Mahendra Sharma, Honorable Pro Chancellor and Director General of Ganpat University, an outstanding academics and an excellent teacher and a vibrant researcher. Dr. Amit Bhai Patel Sahab, Executive Registrar and Pro Vice Chancellor of Ganpat University. Dr. Girish Patel, Dr. Rakesh Patel Sahab, Pro Vice Chancellor of Ganpat University. And above all, probably Ganpat Bhai Patel Sir is not available, but I am still remembering him as an excellent person, the creator of such a beautiful organization, university, that is Ganpat University, having a vibrant intellectual environment, and all the teachers, participants, invited guests, those who are witnessing this excellent event of a talk on Teachers' Day. I am indeed honored. It's a great pleasure for me for being invited to deliver a special talk on this auspicious occasion of Teachers' Day. At the outset, I wish you all a very happy Teachers' Day. Let me say it in my words, it's a day to recall, reminisce, hark back, recognize, and pay a tribute to our great teachers who have made enormous contributions to diversified contours of our life. They have brought us from darkness to light. They have saved our life. They have showed us the path of righteousness. They have made us what we are today. Therefore, I, at the beginning of my talk, pay my most respectful and heartfelt tributes to all my teachers and all teachers of the world who have made greatest contribution to this world, to this humanity. When spoken of the teachers, I really become nostalgic. I remember Professor Sharma, as very aptly said, he has probably made my task easy by giving a pointed and categorical reference to Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, the greatest teacher of the time, one of the astute scholars, and the second president of India, who really sacrificed his own birthday for the celebration of Teachers' Day. Therefore, before getting into the business, let me categorically point out that the teachers, one of the greatest attributes of the teacher, to have the sense of sacrifice. That is the best attributes I think a teacher can have. While saying so, I am reminiscent of a reference from the legendary literary creation of Acharya Chatursen Shastri, which has been one of the excellent contribution to Indian literature. Let me, when I will be speaking about this book, that is called, the name of the book is Vayam Raksham. Though originally written in Hindi, many of the texts are given examples in the script of Sanskrit and other languages. So I think it will be better to speak a little bit Hindi also to make the point more interesting and attractive. So Acharya Chatursen Shastri, Vayam Raksham, there is one of the classic example of the role of the teachers and significance of the teachers in a society, and the story, the legend of C.T. Mahasmati. Very recently, all of us have seen this movie, Bahubali. And much before, Bahubali has just come very recently, much before that, the reference of C.T. Mahasmati, which was one of the most beautiful, prosperous, educationally very, very advanced, having great architectures, was given a reference in the Acharya, in the book of Vayam Raksham, written by Acharya Chatur Sansar. So let me, and this is a story that dates back to pre-Mahabharata era. City Mahasmati was growing very fast. It was the most wonderful city on this earth, most beautiful and advanced in every aspect. Devraj Indra was feeling jealousy about it. He thought how a city on the earth could be more beautiful than my Indrapuri. He called his troops, the सेनापति को बुलाया गया और उनको ऑर्डर इशू किया गया कि ये सिटी महमती को निस्तनाभूत कर दिया जाए, इसको डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया जाए. The order of Devraj Indra was very very honestly and very sincerely executed. And the city was destroyed, nothing was left. For the utter surprise of everybody, right after the 5 or 6 years, the city was seen to be developed in a better fashion what it is earlier. There were more advancements. There was everything intact, beautiful and more beautiful than it was earlier. Devraj Indra was perplexed. He was taken aback, quite surprised how it could be possible. A city which was destroyed to the core, how it could develop just within a span of 5 to 6 years. Again, an order was issued and the city was again destroyed. 3 times repeatedly, the city was destroyed and nothing was left. पूरा निस्तनाभूत कर दिया, कुछ चीजें नहीं छोड़ा. इसके बावजूद भी सिटी दोबारा पुनः बहुत सुंदर रूप से आविर्भाव हो गया. इस बार ये बात देवराज इंद्र को कुछ डाइजेस्ट नहीं हो रहा. Then he called the meeting of the galaxy of intellectuals, the intelligentsia of his court. You know, like Akbar नवरत्न रखे थे, the most intelligent ministers उस नवरत्न जो ग्रुप में होते थे. So while taking any decision on economic front, war front, or any administrative or governance front, the intellectual people, those who are the ministers, Navaratna, they were giving advice to Akbar. Similarly, इंद्रदेव के पास जो गैलेक्सी ऑफ इंटेलेक्चुअल्स थे, जो स्कॉलर्स थे, उनको बुलाया गया, उनके साथ एक मीटिंग कराया गया और उसके बाद देवराज इंद्र ने उनको एक इंस्ट्रक्शन, एक असाइनमेंट दिया कि प्लीज मेक ए रिसर्च इनटू इट and tell me what could be the possible reason for which the city is growing again and again after repeated destruction. Second thing, give me some structured recommendation. What can I do so that the city can never grow again? The intelligentsia of the court put on their thinking cap. After a vivid research, maybe after a month and so, they came with some outstanding recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen, let me here give you 2 concepts of sociology: the material culture and non-material culture. The material culture is our Red Fort, our Somnath temple, our Dwarkadhish temple, Konark temple, our Taj Mahal. So many monumental structures are our material culture, monumental culture, or you can say the culture that is based on material aspects. Non-material aspects is our ideas, intelligence, creativity manifested in the form of research, new knowledge creation, and these non-material culture has really changed the shape of this world. It has changed the way we live today. So the intelligentsia of the court of Devraj Indra, they came out with this recommendation that this time there is absolutely no need to touch the monumental structure, the material culture of the city Mahishmati. Rather, they recommended you just select the teachers, engineers, doctors, and all professionals and kill them. The order was executed. The doctors of the city, the health workers, all professionals like engineers, architects, and all those people, and including the most important aspect is that the teachers were selected and they were killed. And ladies and gentlemen, the city could never grow again. This is the importance of teachers and importance of knowledge in the society, in the civilization. As you all know, India has a very, very rich educational heritage with more than 5,000 years of history, which gave a distinct recognition and identity to India as a Vishwaguru. While speaking on the Guru, especially, I think any discourse on teacher is incomplete without a reference to Guru Sishya Parampara. The tradition of teaching and learning. The one story, one anecdote I explained you, it belongs to pre-Mahabharata era. And as you all know, in Guru Sishya Parampara, in Vedic era, was something different. Guru was an institution in himself, around whom the entire process of education was revolving. Guru, literacy from the Sanskrit literature, Guru literally means Gu plus Ru. Gu is darkness and Ru is removing the darkness from our life and bringing us to the light. So in the Vedic era, Guru was the institution in himself. Admission, selection of the students, admission, examination, devising the curriculum, maintaining the discipline, and all aspects of the educational process was revolving around the book. And that includes imparting knowledge, deciding pedagogy and skills, and most important of everything was character building and all-round development. That was the focus in the Vedic education system, where Guru's character directly transforms the character of the Shishya. Look at their structure. It was Gurukulas. Most of the time, the Shishya, the word has come from the word of learning, Sikhna. The Shishya most of the time was spending with the Guru, that is getting up early in the morning, getting bath in a stream or river, coming back, performing हवन, जिसको हम होम बोलते हैं, पूजा पाठ, वहां से दिनचर्या की शुरुआत होता था, और उसके बाद कुछ भोजन, फिर कुछ मैथमेटिक्स, लॉजिक और वेद वो वैदिक मैथमेटिक्स होता था, वेद, न्याय, मीमांसा, उपनिषद, इसकी पढ़ाई होती थी, और उसके बाद अस्त्र शस्त्र की चलाना, और इवन एग्रीकल्चर, कृषि, बहुत सारी दिस एनिमल हस्बेंड्री, पशुपालन, ये भी सब्जेक्ट उस समय में हुआ करता था. सो ऑल दीज एस्पेक्ट्स, they were shaping the students, shaping the disciples to be the ideal citizens of a society, and serving the society with all qualities within them. Vedic system, where there was no rating, no ranking, no quality consideration. Example, Guru Sandipani, the ashram of Guru Sandipani, in which Lord Krishna and Balaram was given education and trained. During that time, only it was the reputation of a Guru that was deciding, that was the only deciding factor for the reputation of the Gurukul. So there was no provision of rating and ranking, but still the education quality, the quality of education was centering around humanity. That was a really man-making process. They were making the human beings the way a human being should be. They were imbibing, they were instilling all the attributes of human being, what a human being must have. That was the complete education. Next, coming to the ancient times, you know, most favorable, most famous seats of learning, Nalanda, Takshila, Vallavi, Vikramshila, Odantpuri. These were some of the very, very popular, vibrant centers of learning, and they were inviting scholars, not only the scholars of various parts of India, students from various parts of India were studying there, but also they were inviting scholars from China, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, North Africa, Persia, and many other countries. And it was one of the ancient centers of learning, Nalanda, that had harbored more than 10,000 of students with 2,000 teachers, and Bakhtiyar Khilji, who really destroyed the Nalanda University and set fire one of its very enriched library of that time, and that really was one of the very, very, you can say, sunset day for the education tradition and the learning tradition of this country. During the medieval times, education was flourished in the temples, mosques, maktabs, madrasa, मंदिर, इस जगह पे एजुकेशन की व्यापक मात्रा में प्रचलन था, और स्टूडेंट्स, शिष्य या ये जो लर्नर्स, दे वर लार्जली with the religious nature of education, they were being taught other aspects also. In modern times, schools, colleges, and universities, they came to existence, and probably the University of Berlin, Humboldt, they have been the vibrant centers of learning, like in the modern times, and there has been a departure of the paradigm, the shifting of a paradigm of the nature of learning. Gradually, we have shifted to focus upon more the scientific education, research, and our the pedagogy, content, curriculum, has everything has been changed and being evolved. The modern day, the teacher, the role and responsibility are different, and it's changing very fast. They have to balance in between the tradition and modernity. India is such a country where indigenous ignoring and without taking into consideration its indigenous system, indigenous provision, we cannot, our education system cannot progress. We have to somehow focus upon the indigenous system as well as maintain the balance with the modern education. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the higher education system today is passing through a very critical time, very critical juncture. Many changes are coming to the society, especially the advancement of technologies. The rising of new technologies have really changed the way we looked at our systems. And right now, since March 23rd, let me give a reference. I think this talk will be incomplete if we give a reference to this COVID-19 situation. Let me tell this, that from March onwards, the higher education system in the country and in the whole world is completely paralyzed. The time has really presented us such a crisis that our educational systems all over world, especially the institutions, are locked down. Students, teachers, everything, everybody and everything has been confined to their home. Really, this COVID-19, the global pandemic, which has taken a very deadly shape for the world, has posed a fundamental challenge for the human beings all over the world. It has affected industry, economy, society, and education. It has posed a formidable challenge for the educational institutions by completely shutting down, locking down, and disrupting the routine and normal functions like teaching, learning, examination, research, and other activities. Let me tell you, it is not a normal crisis. It is not a crisis of the time. Rather, it is a civilizational crisis. This crisis of a global pandemic has posed triple challenges for the universities. First of all, to resume their normal functioning and continue their normal activities of teaching, learning, exams, and research so as to minimize the academic loss of the students. Second challenge, the higher education institutions have to play a very significantly unique role in helping to overcome the situation through their scientific work and research. Inventions of vaccine is most important, and let me tell you, the universities have often come to the rescue to the society when there is a social and humanitarian crisis, economic crisis, political crisis, or any crisis of any other form. Ladies and gentlemen, universities are considered to be the guardian of the socialistic and humanistic tradition of a nation. If the universities will not be supporting to the society for overcoming the crisis, then nobody else can be expected to come to rescue in this moment. And the third challenge is building resilience among the youth studying in these institutions to cope with this new normal situation. And this new normal that has really given rise to a certain kind of uncertainty which is prevailing over. And we do not know when the situation is going to be normal. Till then, we have a new normal situation. But has this new normal come to our civilization for the first time? Perhaps no. If we look back to the annals of history, let me tell you, 1789, French Revolution. The revolution overthrew the monarchy, established a republic, catalyzed violent periods of political turmoil, and finally culminated in a dictatorship under Napoleon Bonaparte, the first consul of France, who brought many of the revolutionary principles to areas he conquered in Western Europe and beyond Western Europe and beyond. Inspired by liberal and radical ideas such as equality before the law, the revolution influenced the decline of absolute monarchy while replacing them with republics of and liberal democracy. Probably that was a kind of new normal. Second, 1917 Bolshevik movement. After an incessant struggle, the Bolsheviks took power in Russia in 1917, overthrowing the provisional government of Alexander Kerensky and became the only ruling party in the subsequent Soviet Russia and its successor state, the Soviet Union. And probably that was the second kind of new normal. 1945, the most glaring example. 1945, nobody can forget the Second World War. The American bombing on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One bomb's name was probably a little boy, and the other bomb was Fat Man. And the bombing of two bombs, the devastated, played havoc in two cities of Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, mercilessly killing lakhs of people, destroying the entire ecosystem, entire environment, and giving a big socio-political, economic and environmental tragedy to the nation of Japan that could took long time to overcome such a tragedy. Probably that was the third kind of new normal we have seen. Based upon the experience that happened in 1945, the United Nations drafted the Charter for Human Rights. Probably for the first time, human rights was given a recognition. And it was thought important to protect, safeguard the human rights. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that became a milestone document which was drafted by United Nations. It became a milestone document in the history of human rights, and drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly, Paris, on 10th December 1948. And as a common standard of achievement for all people and all nations, it became a milestone document. It sets out for the first time that fundamental human rights to be universally protected. That was a new kind of new norma. 1995, liberalization, privatization, globalization, introduction of these three aspects, three things that changed everything. Market economies were opened. Private participation were in education, in economy, in other sectors were encouraged. And globalization really blurred the boundary of the nations. Transnational movements were enhanced. More student faculty exchange programs were encouraged, if we talk in educational parallel. Similarly, industrial sector, economy sector, everywhere there was the transnational movement and transnational business, and everything was taking it took a global shape, and that we called it a globalization. And ladies and gentlemen, this globalization is not at all a new phenomenon for India. हमारी परंपरा में ये it is ingrained in our history. हमारी परंपरा में ये निहित है, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम. हमने आज नहीं है, सदियों से पूरा वसुधा, पूरा विश्व को हम एक परिवार मानते हैं. ठीक है, ज्योग्राफिकल बाउंड्रीज कभी ह्यूमैनिटी को अलग नहीं कर सकता. आज there is a larger realization of this part all over the world. And this 1995 introduction of liberalization, privatization, and globalization, what we call it as the LPG, probably that was also a kind of new norm. Or 1972. 1972 की जो यूनेस्को एजुकेशन कमीशन आया, ये सभी समस्या, सभी चीजों को देखते हुए एजुकेशन का रोल को, the role of education was really given a priority. Education can bring transformation in all aspects of life. Therefore, it delineated on 4 pillars of learning. Learning to learn, learning to do, learning to be, learning to live together. Learning to learn, that means creation, dissemination, and emphasis on knowledge. It was already there. We have been doing it since ages, since probably the dawn of the civilization. From our pre-Vedic era, Vedic era, medieval times, modern times, everywhere, knowledge is the center of education access, education, the edifice of education. Learning to do, skill development, implication of the knowledge what we have gained. Of late, our Honorable Prime Minister, he has brought really revolutionary change in the way we are looking at the education system. In India, not only in India, this issue was there. It was infested world over, everywhere, that knowledge was only given importance without skills. And knowledge without skills puts us nowhere. So therefore, he took a very wise decision of promoting the skill development activities throughout the country. Now we have number of skill development initiatives. There are so many, plenty of universities and other centers, they are engaged in the skill development activities. So that is what learning to do. Learning to be a good citizen, to be a good human being, to be all encompassing, to be inclusive in our attitude. And the last pillar, the most important pillar, all other pillars that rest upon that is learning to live together. Learning to live peacefully in this earth with a fellow feeling, brotherhood, and that gives us a concern for humanity, priority of humanity. But today, a question comes. Does the system of education today caters to all these needs? What we need to live in a multipolar, multicultural world. The real meaning and concept of education probably has been misconstrued. Education should not create confusion and conflicts. That's not the real education. Examples: India-Pakistan relationship today, you can see. They stand up at last, I think 1 year before at Doklam, India-China, and the recent skirmish in LAC, line of actual control, India-China border. The ethnic conflicts of South Sudan, Israel-Palestine conflict, American-Iran conflict, the huge explosion at Lebanon, China-Taiwan crisis, and the people's agitation in Belarus. So many examples, plenty of examples are there where human unrest is creating a chaotic situation in the world. And in such a new normal situation, how to respond to these challenges? Education is not simply a piece of paper. It is an understanding of one's own self. This is what the role of a guru is, to make the students, the disciples, to realize, to understand of their own self, to understand their true self. One of the greatest educational thinker and philosopher, G.D. Krishnamurti, I am reminded and reminiscent of some of his references of his philosophical and educational discourses. He says, every human being has two worlds, physical world and inner world. Many, I could see, I think around 300 participants are now with us. So many of them may be from the philosophy background. Let me explain you. There are two concepts of philosophy: epistemology and metaphysics. Epistemology is theory of knowledge. Metaphysics is the nature of ultimate reality. Every human being has got two worlds. One is the inner world, and other one is the outer world. Outer world is the physical world, and inner world is the you can say metaphysical. The outer world is the metaphysical world, and the inner world is somewhere related with the inner self. And when we introspect ourselves about our own understanding, knowing our own self, this relates to our inner world. And life is a mix of both. Both are inexplicably and intricately linked with each other. Today, our physical world is afflicted, physical inner both are afflicted with misery, anxiety, confusion, racial and social violence, segmentism, divisive forces, parochialism. What a paradoxical situation. On the one hand, we call upon creating a harmonious world, ameliorating the human living, bringing peace, tranquility to the society, adhering human values, ethical considerations and standards. On the other hand, we create confusion, and our education system, which is supposed to be a tool of human transformation, probably has miserably failed. Imbalances are being created, potential disasters are being created, pandemics are being created. Ladies and gentlemen, let us have an introspection today. This crisis of corona is certainly not a natural creation. It is a man-made disaster. We have created this disaster, and if anyone can be wholly, solely blamed for this creation, that is only the human beings. The inner world has been suffering from a disorder, also psychological disorder. If it doesn't equip itself to maintain the balance and required equilibrium. In the new normal, we need a balance in both the things, that is inner and physical world. And here the teacher has to play a very, very active and strong role. As you understand, hunger requires to be satisfied for our physical needs. Similarly, our psychological needs to be satisfied for psychological needs, that is our emotional well-being, that also needs to be satisfied. Change coming to society is very rapid and passive. But in the face of this change, both rapid and passive, instead of being a responsive, instead of keeping abreast of the changes and working in conformity with the changes, accepting the changes, we are becoming more and more individualistic, self-centered, and slightest sense of we have no slightest sense of ethical considerations while choosing exploiting our environment, while doing anything. We don't be very sympathetic, very compassionate about the things. That is one of the attributes ever ingrained in our indigenous culture and civilization, that is going far away from us now. Let me give you one example. The change is so fast. Can you ever imagine a student of engineering today, when he is taking admission in his degree program, 4 years later, he is confused, he doesn't know what kind of skills he will require. Today, we are giving him some content, some aspects in the curriculum, thinking they are of relevance. But right after 4 years, when he completes the degree, probably he doesn't know what kind of a degree, what kind of skills he will require. See, some of the most important features of our times, हमारी जो उद्भावन है, कुछ नई चीजें हैं जो हमारी आज पूरा शिक्षा व्यवस्था को एनामोड कर रहा है, वो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, रोबोटिक, बिग डेटा एनालिसिस, इंटरनेट ऑफ थिंग्स, machine learning, and all these aspects, new developments, it has brought a massive and metamorphic change in educational paradigm. Educational paradigm is evolving. The teacher has to take a different role in this evolving educational paradigm. We need to devise our curriculum in conformity with the need of the time. CDIO, most of the delegates must be from engineering background. हम कुछ concepts उसको use करते हैं. Basically, I belong to a social science background. That is conceive, design, implement, and organize. CDIO. See, let me tell you, more things are being learned outside than the classroom today. Let me give you a data. Today, entire world has 1.5 billion students. They are suffering from this new normal. These students will have to cope up with the new normal situation. These students are confused today how to cope up with the new normal situation. And they will also cope up with leadership. They have to be prepared. They have to be equipped with the right kind of knowledge, skills, insight for providing leadership to our society tomorrow. Industry, society, economy, polity, and educational landscape, everything has to be has to be given leadership by these 1.5 billion students. And they will add values. They will add to our experience. They will be creating experience around the content. Here the teacher has to play an important role, creating experience around the content. That is the need of the time. COVID-19, in fact, is to be turned as an opportunity. How it can be turned to be opportunities, that we need to work upon, that we need upon to think. We as teachers, मुझे एक concept अभी याद आ रहा है, मैं before I forget आप लोगों से share करना चाहूँगा. For a large part of a time, it was believed that the intelligent quotient, IQ, is the most important aspect that decides the successfulness of a person in his career, life, and everything. कुछ देर बाद कुछ psychologists आए, उन्होंने कहा नहीं, IQ is not sufficient enough. We have to also, we have to content, we have to promote, we have to nurture the EQ, emotional quotient. उसके बाद आया कि emotional quotient, fine, it is required along with IQ, but we also need to develop the social quotient. और स्टूडेंट की सोशल क्वोशेंट अगर ठीक नहीं होगा तो सोसाइटी में उसको कोहैबिटेशन में प्रॉब्लम आए. तो सोशल क्वोशेंट, सम पीपल विल, रिलीजियस पीपल कॉल्ड इट स्पिरिचुअल क्वोशेंट, दैट ह्यूमन बीइंग को अमृत की संतान माना जाता है. तो इसलिए ह्यूमन बीइंग इज द पर्सन, द एंटिटी, द यू कैन से क्रिएशन ऑफ गॉड, जिसकी स्पिरिचुअल क्वोशेंट भी कुछ मात्रा में होना जरूरी. आज इसकी बियॉन्ड हमें थोड़ा और 3-4 क्वोशेंट की ओर सोचना पड़ेगा. दैट इज एडवर्सिटी क्वोशेंट. हमें अपने स्टूडेंट्स को, वी हैव टू प्रिपेयर देम कि टू डेवलप सम एडवर्सिटी क्वोशेंट, टू अंडरस्टैंड how to accept the adversity of the time, or how to make ourselves prepare to face the challenges of adversity. So adversity quotient has to also be nourished and to develop and to be taken care of. Similarly, adjustment quotient, understanding the adversity of the time, adversity of all perspectives, हमें एडजस्ट भी करना आना चाहिए. So the adjustment quotient among the students also needs to be encouraged, and that needs to be reached. And the sixth one, first IQ, EQ, SQ, then adversity quotient and adjustment quotient and the adaptability quotient. सिर्फ अंडरस्टैंडिंग या एडजस्ट करने से नहीं होगा, और वो एडजस्ट, it should not be a compulsory process, it should be a voluntarily accepting of something. We must, it should be our choice. We must have a voluntary choice of adapting with the adverse situation. Then only we can make our students to cope up with the new normal situation. We need to develop our curriculum on design thinking principles. We need to incorporate empathy, the content of empathy, compassion, ideation, and the skill for developing prototype, testing, and the curriculum in the curriculum, and the curriculum should be revised. I think maximum within 3 to 4 years, because we are really passing through a very rapidly and steadily changing in times, and we need to develop resilience and resolution among our students. That is most important. Accountability is important. We need to revisit our curriculum and content of what we are teaching. We need to relook at our pedagogy. We need to have a renewed commitment for knowledge and creation through research, and the evaluation also. Evaluation earlier, only we were assessing the student's knowledge, how much he has learned from the classroom, and that learning in terms of information only, mugging of the information. Today, the paradigm, evolving paradigm, needs something different. That is assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. इसको हमें अपनी evaluation process में लाना बहुत जरूरी है. Empowering students to take charge of life and integrating accountability to our educational system will address all these new norms. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the time is complete, but let me tell you, the teachers today have a different role, have that role what they have been playing earlier, that role cannot be now relevant, and we have to rethink. और हमें एक टीचर की जो एट्रीब्यूट है, ये मैं उस पर थोड़ा ज्यादा बात इसलिए नहीं किया, नहीं तो there are several attributes of the teacher. His communication, his knowledge, teacher should be an advisor, he should be a role model, and so many other things. They are the common things. Many of us are teachers, and we know about that. There is no, but today, looking at the situation, I think in the evolving paradigm, the teacher की जो quality, जो attributes और उनकी जो role होना है, वो थोड़ा एक changing perspective से होना है, तब जाके हम आज जो परिप्रेक्ष्य ऑफ चेंज है, जो आज प्रासंगिक जो कॉन्टेक्चुअल है, कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ चेंज है, उस पे चीजों को ठीक से हम एडजस्ट कर पाएंगे. और सबसे जो इम्पोर्टेंट बात ये है कि टीचर सोसाइटी के मार्गदर्शक होता है. सिर्फ स्टूडेंट, टीचर सिर्फ स्टूडेंट का नॉलेज की जो गाइड नहीं होता, स्टूडेंट की सभी डायमेंशन, टीचर का जो रोल इन ए मैन मेकिंग प्रोसेस, दैट हैज टू बी रियली गिवन ए न्यू लुक, और टीचर्स हैव टू प्रिपेयर द स्टूडेंट इन सच ए वे ताकि हमें एक फ्यूचर रेडी लीडर्स को हम तैयार कर सकें, और फ्यूचर की जो समस्या है उसको टैकल करने के लिए उनको हम समर्थ, we must make them capable. This is what I thought to speak a little bit on NEP also, but Professor Sharma sir has already given a few points that recruitment of capable, qualified and competent faculties. One aspect, let me add with this very very firmly, जो aspect उसमें नहीं दिया गया है, probably they could not pass in the mind of the our visionary people, those who drafted that is created teachers with values, competent, qualified, and this competent, qualified teachers are required, but teachers without values, teachers without ethical, moral standards, I think it will not serve the purpose. By saying so, and I belong to a teaching learning traditional घराना, एक वैदिक घराने से belong करता हूँ. My father is a renowned and an astute वैदिक scholar. और आखिरी में हमेशा मैं मेरा टॉक को एक वैदिक श्लोकों के साथ कंक्लूड करता हूँ. तो मैं आपसे ये साझा करना चाहूंगा. नलिनी दलगत जलमपि तरलम तावत जनमति अतिशय चपलम. नलिनी दलगत जलमपि तरलम तावत जनमति अतिशय चपलम. क्षणमपि संगति सजन्य रेखा. क्षणमपि संगति सजन्य रेखा भवति भवान्नवे तारणे नौका. Let me explain the meaning. Let me translate it. नलिनी, एक कमल के पत्ता एक पानी पॉन्ड में, रिवर में कहीं पर भी फ्लोट हो रहा है, उसके ऊपर एक बूंद पानी, ए बबल ऑफ वाटर उसके ऊपर पड़ा हुआ है, और वो स्लो हवा की जो गति से वो बबल ऑफ वाटर भी हिल रहा है. एट एनी द लाइफ ऑफ that bubble of water is so volatile, so fragile, it can be dropped in the water at any point of time and the life ends there. ऐसा ही मनुष्य के जीवन भी, मनुष्य का मति भी चल चंचल चल चपल. ऐसे में कुछ साधु लोग, कुछ गुणीजन लोग, कुछ जिसको हम आज की डेट में मॉडर्न टर्म में गैलेक्सी ऑफ इंटेलेक्चुअल्स कहते हैं, कुछ गुणी विद्वान लोगों का संगत अगर कुछ क्षण के लिए लाभ किया जाए, यह हमें माया रूपक ज्ञान रूपक जिस माया संसार को पारी करने के लिए एक छोटा सा नौका सदृश साबित होता है, मददगार साबित होती है. इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ आप लोगों को गुरु दिवस की, शिक्षक दिवस की दोबारा ढेर सारा शुभकामना देते हुए मैं मेरा वाणी को विराम करना चाहूंगा. जय हिंद, नमस्कार.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your deep study about education, history, and future vision. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Amarendra Pani, sir, for accepting our invitation and sharing his idea with us. I would like to thank Dr. Mahendra Sharma, sir, for always inspiring us. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Rakesh Patel, sir, Dr. Amit Patel, sir, for their constant support and guidance. I'm also thankful to the organizing team. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all the distinguished guests, executive deans, directors, principal, heads, faculty members, and dear students for lending their ears and making this webinar successful. Thank you once again. Now, before concluding, I am happy to announce that very recently, on the auspicious occasion of 74th Independence Day, we have inaugurated the microforest in the lush green campus of Ganpat University. We feel proud to say that at present campus houses 40,000 trees, that is one student, 3 trees. Today, on the auspicious occasion of Teachers' Day, to show our gratitude towards our 600 Guni teachers, we are planting 600 trees in this microforest with a theme of One Teacher, One Tree. Dr. Amit Patel, sir, Pro Vice Chancellor and Executive Registrar, Ganpat University, is dedicatedly working on this microforest development project. So I request him to give a brief about this microforest. Please, sir.
Thank you, Anand bhai. In fact, this is an idea of our Honorable President, sir, and Pro Chancellor, sir, jointly. They both have envisioned this idea of having a student tree ratio, and we are having 1:3 student tree ratio. So both wanted to have a student tree ratio up to, in a phase 1:5. And then later on, we will have another ambitious plan of increasing that student tree ratio. However, at the same time, our number of students are increasing. So this ratio, to maintain this ratio of 1:3 is also difficult. And we put up a target of 1:5. Currently, we have a 40,000 tree. And now, as we are expanding, we need more buildings, we need more open space for even creating more urban infrastructure on the campus. And hence the place for natural vegetation is continuously decreasing, and that is how these concepts of microforest has came into the mind to create a forest on the campus. And that is also in a very unique way of creating a forest in a very smaller piece of land. Popularly, it is known as a urban forest into architect and landscape designer people. But the forest that we are currently creating on the campus is altogether different from this urban forest. The principle that we have taken to create this urban forest is a theory which has been successfully implemented by Professor Akira Miyawaki, a professor emeritus of Yokohama National University, Japan, and he has been bestowed with the Blue Planet Prize, which is considered as a Nobel Prize of for environment. So he has developed this concept called potential natural vegetation, and through which creating a sustainable forest which can last for more than 10,000 years without maintenance of those jungle. So with that theory, we started developing a microforest on our campus in the land of almost a 20-acre plot. In the phase 1, we are planning to have around 30 to 35,000 trees at a time that we are planting in a phased manner. And in phase 2, we will open up another one to, keep momentum with our ambitious plan of maintaining 1:5 student tree ratio, and then later on increasing that. So as our commitment to nature and building a sustainable future for next generation in whatsoever we are doing. So this is one of the attempt to give, to contribute towards a sustainable environment, and to give respect and gratitude to all our teachers. As a part of this creating a micro forest on the land of 20 acre, we are building the second plot of that micro forest and dedicate to all our teachers. So we are planting today 600 tree into a plot size of 200 square meter. Let me give you some idea about this. So on a 100 square yard plot, through this microforest project, we are planting minimum 300 trees. That means in a 1 square meter area, we are planting 300 trees. So on a land piece of only 100 square meter, that means a 1 BHK tenement on the area of 1 BHK tenement, we are planting 300 trees, and that's how we are creating a very dense, naturally grown forest. This forest probably for next 2 to 3 years only, we have to nurture them and maintain them. Later on, for more than thousands of years, it will grow and it will sustain by themselves itself, and the tree supports each other. So we are creating a full ecosystem which is sustainable. So with these words, I invite all the teachers who are on the campus right now to join us to plant these 600 trees. This plot we are dedicating to all our teachers. Thank you everyone for being with us and joining this mission of creating a sustainable future. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Amit Patel sir, for briefing about the microforest and planting the tree. Now, towards the end, I would request all present over here to kindly join for the university song. Please, sir.
गणपत विद्यानगर तणा अमे तेज पुंज अविनाशी आधन्य धराना संतानो अमे सरस्वती अनुरागी आधन्य हमें सरस्वती अनुरागी। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर। नव चेतन हम पगले प्रगटे, आलस जड़ता त्यागी। युग युग नांधार हरती, ज्ञान ज्योत अहि जागी। युग युग नांधार हरती, ज्ञान ज्योत अहि जागी। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर। ज्ञान तना निर्मल प्रकाश थी, धर धर उज्जवल करशु। सत्य प्रेम करुणा छलकावी, स्वर्ग भूमि पद धरशु। सत्य प्रेम करुणा छलकावी, स्वर्ग भूमि पद धरशु। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर। समाजनो उत्कर्ष साधवा, हमें विद्या ने आराधी। रहे न कोई दीन अकिंचन, क्रूर दुष्ट हतभागी। रहे न कोई दीन अकिंचन, क्रूर दुष्ट हतभागी। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर। यज्ञ दान तप कर्म हमारा, शाश्वत रहे प्रकाशी। धरा गुर्जरी मात भारती, ठाशे धन्य सुभागी। धरा गुर्जरी मात भारती, ठाशे धन्य सुभागी। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर। विवेक विद्या पराक्रम थी, अंबर आंबीलैषु। सुजलाम सुफलाम धरती माना, चरणे जीवन धरषु। सुजलाम सुफलाम धरती माना, चरणे जीवन धरषु। गणपत विद्यानगर, गणपत विद्यानगर।
Thank you all. Now we conclude the today's session. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much. Thank